good afternoon, Toastmaster, and most welcome guests. Today I'm going to talk about leadership style. But before we start, what is leadership? Next slide, please. So leadership seems like a simple word, but yet there are so many different definitions. I compiled a list with the most common definitions of leadership. There's so many. I compiled 3, but there's so many. But I just want to summarize that leadership is a process by which a person is influenced and inspires others to achieve a common goal. Next, please. But before I move on, I want to emphasize the difference between leadership and management. Leadership focuses on the people. Management focuses on the task. So manager, most oftentimes they spend a lot of their time overseeing the operations of the task, such as planning, budgeting, managing people, reviewing their performance. Next, please. So as I mentioned previously, there's a lot of definitions for leadership. There are also many definitions or theories on leadership styles. When you Google leadership style, you may come up with 8, 10, or even 12. The one that I'm going to introduce is from the Toastmaster Pathway. So here's the 8 common leadership styles, and I'm going to go into each one of them and provide examples for you. The first one is innovative leaders. Innovative leaders, they seek the future, not the present. They serve as a role model for the futures. They encourage innovative ideas, new process, new method. They also willing to share information and knowledge with other people. This style is more effective when solving complex problems or anything related to technology. My example is Larry Page. Any one of you heard of Larry Page? Yeah. So he's the co-founder of Google. He launches a Project Loom with the intentions to bring internet to the rest of the world. Not everyone have internet, imagine that. So they bring the internet to people with the special balloons. So you can see the size of the balloons. So these balloons travel through the edge of the space, delivering collectivity to people in the unserved or underserved community around the world. Next, we have affiliative leaders. So affiliated leader, they focus on emotional needs, emphasizing teamwork and harmony. They best in creating positive personal relationships and avoid conflicts. For these reasons, they have a difficult time delivering negative feedback. So this style is more effective when increasing morale or motivate other people through stressful circumstances. My example is Joe Torre, the ex-manager of the New York Yankees. You can imagine he have a challenging job because you have to manage a group of team consists of many outstanding players. But with his management style, he's able to keep the team together and build some sort of harmonies among the team members. So ultimately, he led the team into 5 championships. Next is coaching leaders. Coaching leaders, they direct and guide. They focus on preparing the individuals by enhancing their skills and communications with a positive statement, encouragement, and inspirations. They are motivated by challenging the individuals. My example is Mahatma Gandhi. One of his favorite sayings is, "A man is but the product of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes." He was behind his people, inspiring them to lift themselves up and led India to independence. He was a selfless person and doesn't believe in possessions and control, but yet he greatly influenced a lot of people, even the ones who had powers. He simply inspired others to do their best. Next, we have altruistic leaders. Altruistic leaders, they focus on active listening, empathy, and commitments to build a community. They personalize approaches to meet the individual needs of the team members, guiding others with ultimate goal of improving their wellness. My example is Bernie Gossmans. He's the founder of Grayston's Bakery in New York. His Buddhist religious belief drew him to community development. He wants to work with homeless and unemployed. The bakery basically hire anyone, regardless of their education, their criminal background, because it wants to give people a second chance. Its principle is the bakery doesn't hire people to make cakes. It makes cakes to hire people. Next, we have democratic leadership. A democratic leader rely on consensus on decision making, and is comfortable to allow other people to take lead occasionally. They are motivated. They create collaborative environments so that people or the members are more committed to the desired outcomes. This style is ineffective when the time is limited, or if the team member doesn't have the expertise or knowledge to make a quality contributions. One of the examples would be Army Journal and our 34th president, Durant D. Eisenhower. So President Eisenhower once said, leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something that you want done because he wants to do it. Leadership must appreciate the leadership that is continually searching for the common need and involves conversation, both listening and talking. Next, we have bureaucratic leaders. So bureaucratic leaders, they work by the book. They establish and enforce rules. They are motivated by disciplines and demand immediate compliance. So it's most effective when you deal with situations that need to be made in a short amount of time. I'm not going to provide you any examples, but I'm sure that you have encountered any leaders with this type of style in FTD. Next, we have pace-setting leaders. So pace-setting leaders focus on productivity. They set high standards for themselves and also his staff. They're often more experienced than the ones that they lead, and they are able to, and they always lead and challenge by example. However, they won't ask anyone to do something that they wouldn't do themselves. My example is Steve Jobs. He was a hardworking person, we all know that. He also demands excellence from his staff. He was called a high-maintenance coworker that name or call the other person that didn't impress him as the bozo. So last is the authoritative leaders. Authoritative leaders, they provide long-term directions and focus on the end goals. They are able to clearly articulate a vision, give a clear directions, and set standards. They often motivated by inspiring enthusiasm for the missions. This style is most effective when the changing of directions or visions is required. My example is President John F. Kennedy and the U.S. space programs. So in 1961, he had a mission. He also committed the whole nations to an ambitious goal to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. He not just provide the missions, he also provide a specific time frame. He telling the U.S. people that we're gonna put a man onto the moon by the end of the decade. He also provide financial resources that needs to achieve that mission. So, what do you think your style is? But no matter what kind of style you have or what is your dominant style, you may exhibit different leadership styles in different circumstances. Inspiring leaders tend to use the combinations of the different styles and based on the environment and condition that they surround them. Before I end my presentations, I want you to read more about the leadership material that I provided a link for you to read. I'm also gonna pass out like the self-assessment test is used to measure your desire and capability of developing leadership style. So remember, leadership is not just gonna be at the workplace. It can help you become more effective in your family, your neighborhood, social clubs, even in Toastmasters. So I really highly encourage you to take this self-assessment test. I also provide you the link on the back of the self-assessment. Thank you.
And welcome, guests. Try. It's an interesting subject, leadership. That's such a broad spectrum that you covered there, a lot of material. There's so many different kinds of leadership. So you did a really interesting subject. I remember when you first joined this club, you've come a long way. You've gone from, your speaking skills are coming up slowly. It's normal, I saw a lot of us in there, that's normal. But you're really progressing very well, so good job there. The information sources, I wasn't quite, either I wasn't paying attention or I missed the source of all this information. Because you always want to put sources on your slides up there. Was it there?
Yeah, their logo was there.
Say again?
Pat Masters' logo was there. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And the breakdown of the 8 common categories, that was very useful information. The indicative, the affirmative, I won't go through all of them. But the source, the people, the famous people to back up each category. That is very useful to help us associate to each category as you went through the list. The questionnaire, that's a very debatable thing if you pass it out before or after. Myself, I think after, so we can do it as we go along. But that's kind of a personal preference. And maybe mention it at the beginning of the speech. If you did, and I failed to hear it, I'm sorry about that. But tell us, hey, we're going to do a questionnaire afterwards, and then a little more detail on it. There was quite a few pauses, but when we're first learning as we go along, it's normal. So it's not against you. It takes time. Especially, I don't know if you do multiple languages, but it's more difficult. But in time, you'll be totally smooth. You increase a lot. You're coming a long way. So with that, thank you. Very good speech. And I'll turn it back over to General Evaluator.